In the heart of South Africa's rolling hills, where the golden grass sways beneath an endless blue sky, one man's life was about to change forever. Lawrence Anthony, conservationist and founder of the Thula Thula Wildlife Reserve, received a call that would test his courage and his compassion. A herd of wild elephants, notorious for breaking fences and defying human control, faced certain death. Their last chance of survival lay with Lawrence, a man who had never tamed an elephant before. But he agreed, because deep within him, he believed that even the most frightened creature could learn to trust again, if only given love, space, and understanding. The elephants arrived in heavy trucks, their trumpets echoing through the reserve. They were terrified, their matriarch dead, their hearts full of rage and grief. They had seen humans only as enemies. When the metal doors opened, the elephants charged, crashing into barriers, kicking up clouds of red dust. Lawrence watched from a distance, his heart pounding. He knew one wrong move could end in disaster. He whispered softly to himself, "You are safe here." And though the elephants couldn't understand his words, perhaps they felt his intention. That night, the herd gathered at the farthest corner of the reserve. They were restless, pushing against the fences, searching for escape. Lawrence stayed awake by the campfire, listening to the low rumble of the elephants through the night air. If they broke through, they would be shot. If they stayed, perhaps a miracle could begin. He decided to camp near them, not as a warden, but as a guardian. He spoke softly into the darkness. "I will not harm you. I will protect you." And somewhere in the deep shadows, an elephant's eyes blinked, watching him back. At dawn, chaos erupted. The elephants, led by the largest female, rammed the fence and escaped into the wild. For Lawrence, it was devastating. He had risked everything and failed. The authorities gave him an ultimatum: bring them back within days or they will be killed. So he set out into the wilderness, trekking their footprints across riverbeds and thorny plains. He followed broken branches, fresh dung, and distant trumpets. For days he searched, until finally he saw them. But when he approached, the matriarch charged, dust exploding around her massive frame. Lawrence stood his ground. He whispered again, "It's all right. You're safe now." And this time, she stopped. For hours, Lawrence stood silently, just a few meters from the herd. No weapons, no fear, only patience. Slowly, the elephants calmed. Their trunks lowered, their breathing softened. The matriarch, once full of fury, took a single step closer. It was a moment that would define both their lives. In the stillness of that African plain, a man and a herd of elephants found an unspoken language: trust. Lawrence knew then that love, not control, was the only path to peace between humans and wildlife.
In the days that followed, Lawrence returned to the herd every morning. He kept his distance, speaking softly, never forcing, never shouting. He learned to read their language. A raised trunk meant curiosity. A flared ear meant warning. A deep rumble meant comfort. Each day, he left food near the waterhole, fruit, hay, and fresh water. At first, they ignored it. Then, one by one, they began to approach. The matriarch, the same giant who had once charged at him, stood before Lawrence now, watching him silently. Her deep, intelligent eyes seemed to ask, "Can I trust you?" And with every sunrise, her answer grew clearer. Yes. Weeks passed before it happened. Lawrence stood quietly by his jeep as the elephants grazed nearby. He had stopped trying to get closer. Now he simply was there, a part of their world. Then, without warning, the young female of the herd stepped toward him. Her trunk reached out, tentative, gentle, curious. She touched his hand. And that instant, something shifted. The years of fear and pain began to fade. A bond had been formed, not through force, but through faith. Lawrence later wrote, "That first touch was like being blessed by nature itself." But nature tests every bond. One night, a violent thunderstorm swept across Thula Thula. Lightning cracked the sky, rain fell in torrents, and the elephants panicked, trumpeting, running, breaking trees. Lawrence rushed out in the darkness, soaked and shivering. He feared they would flee again. But through the chaos, he heard a sound, a low, steady rumble like a heartbeat. It was the matriarch, calling her herd to stay calm. Even as thunder roared, she stood firm, protecting her young. Lawrence watched in awe, realizing he was not their leader, only their student. Peace never lasts long in the wild. Soon, danger came, not from nature, but from man. Poachers had entered the reserve, hunting elephants for ivory. Lawrence received the call at midnight. Within minutes, he was in his jeep, headlights cutting through the dark. As he approached the clearing, he saw them, men with rifles, and the herd scattering in terror. Lawrence shouted, his voice echoing through the forest, startling them enough to flee. The elephants gathered near him again, trembling, confused. He stood before them, whispering, "I promise to protect you. I will keep that promise." From that night on, the herd never ran from the sound of his jeep again. They knew it meant safety. As weeks turned to months, the herd transformed. They no longer crashed fences or roamed restlessly. They wandered freely through the reserve, calm, confident, and at home. Lawrence would sometimes wake to the sound of distant trumpets and find the elephants standing outside his home, waiting quietly, as if to say hello. They trusted him now, not as a master, but as one of their own. Their trust was their gift, and he guarded it fiercely. On mornings like this, when the mist lifted and sunlight spilled across the hills, Lawrence felt he had finally found what he was born to do: to listen to the wild.
Under Lawrence's care, Thula Thula became more than a wildlife reserve. It became a sanctuary of healing. The elephants began to thrive. Calves were born. The herd played in the rivers, dust-bathed beneath the sun, and roamed the hills freely. Visitors who came expecting wild aggression instead saw gentleness, intelligence, and even humor. Lawrence often said, "They are not animals to be managed. They are nations with their own laws and leaders." He had stopped trying to control them. Instead, he listened and learned. One evening, Lawrence sat by the fire as the moon rose high. The reserve was silent, except for the rustle of trees. Then he felt something, a deep vibration through the ground. He looked up. The herd was coming, slowly, silently, moving through the night like gray ghosts. They surrounded his camp, forming a protective circle. He stayed still, heart pounding, as the matriarch stepped closer. She reached out her trunk and gently touched his shoulder, a gesture of affection, rare and pure. In that stillness, he realized they no longer feared him, they claimed him. Years passed. Lawrence continued his work, protecting elephants, rescuing rhinos, and educating others about the language of the wild. But his health began to fail. Still, He refused to leave Thula Thula. He often said, "If I die here, I will die among friends." In his final days, he looked out across the valley, watching the elephants grazing in peace. He had given them freedom, and they had given him purpose. He whispered one last promise: "I will always be here with you." In 2012, the news spread across Thula Thula. Lawrence Anthony had passed away. The reserve fell silent, but something extraordinary happened. 2 days later, the elephants began to move. From miles away, they walked, one by one, across rivers and hills toward his home. No one had called them, no one had guided them. They simply knew. For 2 days, they stood outside his house, quietly, motionless, as if mourning the man who had saved them. Scientists couldn't explain it, but those who witnessed it felt only awe, the language of the heart, spoken without words. Today, Thula Thula still stands, a living legacy of trust between man and nature. The elephants roam freely, their calves growing strong beneath the African sky. Visitors speak of a feeling in the air, as if the land remembers his voice. Lawrence Anthony proved that compassion can cross species and that even the wildest hearts can learn to forgive. He taught the world that listening, truly listening, is the first step toward understanding. And when the wind moves gently through the grass at sunset, some say you can still hear it, a whisper from the elephants and from the man who loved them.